7:30 a.m. in all weathers, even in misty, fine rain. Today, in 2018, I ask myself, how could I have been so stupid and gauche, spreading my good quality English collectible stock on the ground, watching and waiting for punters. What a hard life it was sur les trottoirs de Paris, but oh so much fun, without a care in my crazy Mickey Mouse world. One early, damp, grey morning, a white van driven by a French postcard dealer called Alexandre was backing out of his spot in the market and didn't see my rubbish on the wet ground covered with plastic as protection against the drizzle, and thus ran over and flattened my precious collectible vintage English biscuit tins. When I shouted at him, pointing out what he'd done, ruining my stock, he just laughed, shrugged his shoulders and drove off. If they weren't postcards, to his way of thinking, it was merde pour la poubelle. I never forgot his insolent, phallocratic behaviour and the incident, later ignoring this bombastic dealer when I saw him running around at the ephemera and postcard fairs. I was later told by dealers in the know that he specialised in erotica, but I didn't care, as I was not interested in doing business with Alexandre Dupois, even though years later I ventured gingerly into that themed area through happenstance. The decades passed and my dealing days ended, turning my stock and private collection into a themed commercial nostalgia photo library called Ranicar-Breese. After all, why sell an image when you can license reproduction rights and get to keep the original image? Have your cake and eat it too, you might say. One of my themes was erotica. Having bought several alluring, sexy dressed sepia ladies of the night postcards, along with American 40s era Betty Page black and white posed bondage photographs. The Parisian ladies were erotic in the 20s with garters, some wearing negligés and others topless but never bottomless, being scantily dressed at all times. Their faces became so familiar that it was as if I was having a relationship with these women. None of them looked like sluts. I made sure I handpicked them for their attractive smiles and sensual bodies. They all looked like they were enjoying themselves, sitting on beds or lounging around, resting on decorative, distinctly designed Art Deco oval cushions. Some wore dark school uniforms with white blouses, but no panties, carrying books. Some showed their provocative garters with laddered stockings, while others were doing something surreal like ironing or telephoning. My favourite lacy petticoat-clad lady was holding a whip across her knees, sitting demurely, waiting patiently for her next victim. Back in London, I was contacted by the formal, bespectacled picture researcher Emily, working for Wordsworth Editions, who were publishing a series of out-of-print vintage erotic books. They needed a good selection of sepia, glimpse of stocking with something shocking ladies in their enticing sepia vintage-looking paper book covers. So Emily and I would scrutinise my ladies, but not showing boobs or nipples at any cost. Emily was so matter-of-fact with her professional research that she could have been looking at household product consumer advertising. No raised eyebrows for this spinster, who was efficient at her job, of course. No amusement or humour that day she came round to source, not sauce. S-A-U-C-E. As I was going to Paris to hunt for more images for Retrograph, my vintage nostalgia archive, it was suggested I browse Les Larmes de Héros, at 58 Rue Amelot in the 11th district to find my ladies. How was I to know that this shop gallery was owned by my arch enemy, Alexandra? However, the gallery was thankfully managed by his hard, po-faced, black-haired, fringed, very Parisienne, scarlet, bow-shaped lipped Louise Brooks look-alike wife. She and I had been introduced at the paper fair when she invited me to come to their gallery, enticing me with the promise of hundreds of sepia lady visuals in all shapes and sizes. I arrived with the sole intention of finding my ladies. Nothing more, nothing less. She escorted me to a large central table that occupied most of the ground floor, but oddly, she stood pouting behind a circular, small reception desk, watching and waiting. For what? For who? I was soon to find out. An erotic clock hung on the wall with female black stocking legs and a red garter, moving with every minute in different positions. The stark white walls were adorned with black and white modern art erotica framed in black, so the effect was quite striking. Black and white and black with a hint of provocative scarlet here and there. I excitedly sat with 4 shoe boxes of vintage postcards. I had all afternoon. I had reserved the time. As I flicked through the sepia images, head down, concentrating, the doorbell rang, and a man entered, moving around behind me silently, as there was not much room to swing a cat. I didn't look up, but kept on focusing on my delectable ladies. Then the doorbell sounded again, and then again. Men were walking around me, looking at the walls silently, but purposely, before disappearing into the basement area where the rare, explicit sadomasochistic photographs were on display for a limited time. Out of curiosity, I had to venture down the stairs. Ooh la la, what an education. Photos of lesbians fondling each other, penetration, Japanese bondage, threesomes, blowjobs, hand jobs, S&M, whips and leather bondage, all very kinky and so French, from Alexandra's famous private collection, some rare ones coming from the French actor Michel Simon's favourite erotic collection. Alexandra had published several photographic books, having found his niche, and the demand was rife without any competition. Prints, books, limited edition reproductions of his explicit photographs, and who knows what other services were on sale in his gallery. I felt very aware I was out of my comfort zone, but on a focused mission. Not, however, thinking of missionary positions, but thinking of book jackets and a proposed poster books of 30 Parisian ladies, each one of whom I would have to name. I looked into their silent faces, thinking of frivolous names like Mimi, Fifi, Lulu, Mumu, as if I was calling them, travelling through time to the world beyond. That was during the late 80s. Today, 20 years on, the shop-cum-gallery is still open, but I'm no longer looking for these smiling, enticing ladies, frozen in time, nor venturing into the underbelly of the shop to be educated. So don't all rush, Dad. Don't all rush to Rue Amelot to look for the ladies.
I'm there already, I've got my ticket book.
Okay, thank you.